A good morning, good afternoon, good evening around the world. Here on the West Coast, it is Ohio gozaimasu, so it is morning, and it looks like there might be a few people from around. But this really is the Global Chamber Los Angeles Meetup. We love to do these because it gives our members an opportunity to connect up with each other, get updated on what's going on in Southern California, and then make some additional connections, hopefully, around the world. I see a few members here in Los Angeles I haven't seen for a bit, so great. Well, hopefully, you can hang around. We'll plan to about 55 minutes. And if you can hang on for that time and have either questions or input, or let us know who you want to meet or what's going on in your world, if there's some things that we can help with, absolutely, we'd like to do that. Today, we would like to start the Global Chamber Los Angeles meetup with some comments from our board chair, and who happens to be a world-renowned expert on trade and exporting and tariffs. I saw Dr. Sarita Jackson, your transcript on NPR and Marketplace, and that fellow who's been around forever, and your expertise being shared with the world and certainly with U.S. exporters, particularly interested to know what's going on, and people who are coming into the U.S., staying up to date on what's going on. Could you kick us off and just let us know what you're seeing out there and any other comments that you'd like to make? Thank you for your leadership.
Sure. Thank you so much, Doug. Welcome, everyone. So great to see everyone on this session for the Global Chamber LA, our monthly meetup. So just to kind of give a brief overview, I'm sure all of us have heard just tariffs, right? So I always say, we had some Oscars and Grammys or something, but my world has just been tariffs, tariffs. So don't ask me about anything going on in Hollywood, but I can tell you about tariffs. So with regard to the key things, just kind of what I'm seeing, just what on March 12th, so that was what last week, we have now the 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports into the United States. Then the next thing now to really watch out for is what is coming down the pipeline for April 2nd with the reciprocal tariffs. There's a lot of talks about what's going on with regard to our trade relations, now just not just US, Mexico, and Canada, but also with Europe. Some of these really high tariffs on different products coming from the European market. So these are just kind of some things. And then, of course, the retaliatory tariffs. And so when it comes to the businesses, really bringing it down to what I'm seeing with some of the companies, and I look forward to hearing from the rest of you once we open this up. But just when it comes to the companies, one of the things I can definitely say is I am glad to still see some small, mid-sized companies that are already exporting, still moving forward, at least with the companies I'm dealing with. No one has reached out and said, you know what, forget it, I'll wait. I did have one company say, well, should I wait? I said, no, you can't wait 4 years. This is your company. You are globally integrated. Now it's just, let's figure out how to maneuver with all of the changes that we are seeing. But there are some specific things that I wanted to highlight, especially with regard to, the opportunities out of this to bring it now to the Global Chamber LA, and just kind of how the Global Chamber has been very helpful with regard to leveraging some of the opportunities within the Global Chamber to work with companies so that they can navigate many of the changes that we've seen just within the first few months of this year. And one of them I don't see on the call, but I do want to just thank anyway, is Christine Peterson, who is a part of our Global Chamber LA, the Director for International Trade and Investment with the Mayor's Office of International Affairs, as well as Aiden Binyan. I know that Aiden spoke with the Global Chamber last year just about some of the opportunities, but one of the things that came out of this was with regard to Africa. And another thing to watch out for, which is going to be later down in the pipeline, I've already been scheduled to kind of speak on this topic, is to see what happens with the African Growth and Opportunities Act, or AGOA, which took effect in 2000, is reauthorized after a certain period. And in September of this year, we'll see what happens. I'll just say, we'll see what happens with regard to reauthorization of AGOA, but nonetheless, at least with Christine Peterson, to be able to see what is going on here in the city of Los Angeles with regard to the outreach for trade and investment with the African continent. And a few weeks ago, I was able to attend a roundtable discussion with the president of Botswana, which I thought was quite fascinating, and to really highlight some of the opportunities when it comes to the African continent. And Botswana is one of the places where I had the opportunity to work and to really hear about some of the opportunities when it comes to the digital economy. So that is one thing that I definitely want to highlight. And then also just kind of throw out for anyone, if you are a manufacturer or know of any manufacturers here in the state of California, like I said, I'm just really glad to see there's still a push to help companies that are looking to export or that are be involved in international trade. So one of the projects that my firm is involved in and currently doing extensive customized market research for companies. These are companies that are already exporting to one or more markets. And so the customized market research is, well, how do we continue to navigate in today's international trade climate? So this program, and I'll put the link in the chat as a resource for anyone in our network, the Regional Export Training and Assistance Program. This is funded by the California Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, otherwise known as GoBiz. Every Wednesday, so far, yesterday was the second Wednesday, there are a series of workshops for any company, anyone that's just interested in getting basic information about the international trade process and the resources available. But then there is a second track where my company is working, and it's free to the companies that participate. It's free to them to get customized, in-depth, customized market research and strategy that they use to guide them as they continue to move forward in the current global economy. So that's my overview of just kind of what's happening, and then bring it down to Global Chamber Los Angeles and the Global Chamber generally speaking, and the resources and the opportunities that are available to our tribe. Thank you. Doug?
Fantastic. Thank you. This conversation is open to both members and non-members, and we're just starting with our members so that they can share more about their perspectives and who they would like to meet and what their challenges are right now. Sarita, are there who is a great connection for you? Who would you like to meet in the coming days? I'm guessing you're probably really busy with helping a lot of people navigate this. What do those best people look like for you?
So anyone in the manufacturing space, so whether you're a service provider where you're working with manufacturers and are looking for additional assistance for manufacturing companies, or manufacturers themselves.
Cool. Very good. Let's continue to go around the room. Thank you, Sarita, for all that you do, including the board chair role. We actually did a retreat this year for the advisory board, and we're on a great track. Sarita's been documenting what's going on, keeping us up to date, because the different committees are doing things. We've got a lot of events being planned, and so thank you for your organization that's helped us so much. Bill Edwards is also here, and he's on our advisory board, and he's amazing. 50 years of trade experience living all over the world. He posts every 2 weeks an update on what's going on in the world for people who are building their businesses around the world. Bill, do you have an opportunity right now to speak and share anything that we should be knowing about this moment in time with trade globally?
I'm trying to get my video to go, but it doesn't seem to want to do it. There we go.
We see you
Well,
now for sure.
there we
And
go.
we hear you.
We did publish our latest biweekly global newsletter on Tuesday of this week, and it's tariffs, 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 and violation of existing free trade agreements, violation of free trade agreements, violation of free trade agreements. So that's pretty much the summary. As Sarita knows from a meeting we were at, I think it was last Friday, Sarita, the Widow C.
Yes.
Things are changing by the minute. We had one of the WIT members, who's also a member of our District Export Council, Judy Wong, who's one of the preeminent trade lawyers in the United States, came down to Chapman from LA, and she said on the way down she was changing her talk because she was hearing on the radio that trade issues had changed in the morning from the way to her meeting. And so it's really hard to understand exactly what's happening right now because it changes so often. Unfortunately, it's the uncertainty and the changes are really damaging our markets, our financial markets. And I don't know, probably some of you that are doing business internationally would also agree that it's damaging our reputation around the world. People don't really know what to think of us right now. We need some consistency. And that's my positive comments, Doug.
Well, of all the people that I knew over the last few weeks, I got a sense that you were relatively optimistic, or at least you had an optimistic streak that this all would work itself out of the system. Or do you still feel that way?
I think it will over time. I just don't know how long it's going to take.
Okay.
For example, we have a new Secretary of Commerce who has not formally appointed his deputy secretaries and assistant secretaries, which are political appointees. But he has made it clear in meetings that he's had with a good friend of mine that the only thing he's concerned about is tariffs. That's what he's concerned about. He's not looking at encouraging American companies to export. He's focused on tariffs. So we've got to learn to live with that sort of approach, which is very different than we've had in the past. I think it will straighten itself out, but I don't know when, Doug. I think it's going to take quite a while.
Okay. What's your advice?
As soon as we can get some consistency, then business people will figure out how to work with it. But it changes so often.
What's your advice in the meantime? How do people survive this period of time? People, when I mean exporters, people who are.
I think you just have to really keep in touch with what's happening, and don't presume that what's happening today is going to impact your product by the time it comes into the country in 4 to 6 months.
Okay.
You've got to follow as many sources as you can. I would not recommend the mainstream media for tariff discussion because I don't think they really know, but there are a lot of sources of information. Foreign Trade Association here in California is one. Their website is a good place. There are a number of places that I know Anita is aware of several sources of places where you can go and get real information from large publications. The Economist and the Financial Times are pretty much Bibles these days as to what's really happening. But it really makes it difficult for business people to plan. That's the big challenge.
Yeah.
I've never seen it quite like this because somebody come out and they say, now it's going to be this way. And then we all figure out how to make that work. But we're having so many changes that I think it's reflected in the stock market, the uncertainty.
Yeah.
But I do believe it will work itself out because it has to, quite honestly. But I don't know when. Anita put a comment in. Was that 4 to 6 months or 46 months?
4 years minus 2 months.
I think you put 46 in.
Yeah, 4 years minus 2 months.
Oh, ooh.
it's probably tongue in cheek, but certainly that wouldn't be a good situation, would it? So I enjoy my hair and I want to keep my hair, even though it is white. Anita, Bill mentioned about sources of information that you might have. Would you like to share any of that, or do you have any comments? You're on the Import-Export Committee, and you also run our Import-Export Forum at Global Chamber. What thoughts do you have?
So that was very kind of Bill to say that, but I don't have my sources all comment on whatever has come out in the news. So it's the same after the fact reactionary information that I read, as opposed to anything that might be predictive in a reliable way. So I Google stuff every day and I kind of see what the consensus is. And then tomorrow it may be different. Like everybody knows, it's changing on a second by second basis. So I wish that I had a good source of information, but I really don't.
Okay. KC Branch is on the call, and everybody, at least in LA, that went on our port tour knows KC not only for his expertise with cannabis and the wine industry, but also providing wine to the Global Chamber members. So Casey, thanks for all that you do. What's your perspective, particularly since yours is somewhat skewed on those types of products?
Well, it's interesting, but where I'm personally concerned or frustrated is the tariffs, because unlike steel and unlike a lot of other products, what comes from Europe, what comes from South America, what comes from Canada is different than what we buy here. And therefore, unlike the fungible products where we're trying to keep it out, we really do want French champagne because it's different than California champagne, because it's different than California sparkling, and it's different than Oregon sparkling, and it's different than champagne that's labeled champagne in different, and it's all interesting, and that's why we drink various kinds of wine. And I think it's really kind of sad that it's being imposed in the alcohol world, because the terroir, where it comes from, is extremely important to the product, and it makes it unique to those particular regions. You know, you can only get a Burgundy in Burgundy, and it tastes different than a Pinot Noir or a Pinot Noir from California. And therefore, that's what we like. And therefore, it really shouldn't be that way. You know, I'm kind of an advocate for no tariffs whatsoever anywhere. I mean, I tried to get wine to Ireland years ago, and they said, yeah, the Irish impose a 25% or 50% tariff on California wine, making California wine, which is already so much more expensive than European wine, almost unmarketable over there. And so why would you spend $50 or $60 for a bottle we buy for 10 here, when you can buy a great bottle of wine for €5 over there? So it really is a difficult uphill battle to get our wines across the country, across the world, even with these tariffs. And now with these tariffs, of course, nobody wants to buy them whatsoever. So it's going to be really hard on the industry. Of course, California producers say, well, that's great, because you're going to buy Pinot Noirs from here, and you're not going to buy the Pinot Noir from Burgundy. So, you know, it's a mixed bag, but I just don't like it in general. But I also think that it's a negotiating stance, and I think things will change for the better at some point. So I'm hopeful.
Okay, so that's a good way to end it. And so your reason for hope is that you think it's going to change.
Yes. And I think it's a negotiating point, and the current administration is doing what it can to show power to the rest of the world, and it's doing that to the harm of a lot of people in this country right now. But I'm hopeful that there's a good overriding strategy that will actually make it do what it's supposed to do. And short-term tariffs have their place in the world. No tariffs is a great way to go, but once again, everybody's got to participate in the no tariff world. Otherwise, everything's tariffed, and there's no cooperation. And I'm looking for some kind of cooperation.
Fantastic. Who are you typically working with? Who are your best clients?
My best clients are people who pay their bills. You know, and I have a few of those in the wine, spirits, and cannabis area. I've been blessed to have the people who pay those bills. But I
You
have others who haven't been able to pay their bills for years.
got it. One of the greatest events I think we've done is the J. Lore Winery that you brought in and talking about the wine industry. So your connections in the wine industry are really amazing. So congratulations
Well, thank you.
on that.
Yes.
Let's keep going
Bring
around the
more
room
wine.
for sure. Is there wine in that coffee cup, or is that
No,
really?
there's coffee in the coffee cup. See.
I see. It does. And Ayako, I don't mean to surprise you, and hopefully you're able to talk. Ohayo gozaimasu. With Toki Bookkeeping, what are your perspectives on what's going on in the market right now, and what would you like to share? Thank you for your membership and group.
It's been a while for me to join this global chamber event. Thank you for keep sending invitation to me. I'm glad that I'm able to attend today. Yeah, and I'm the founder and CEO of Toki Bookkeeping, located in Irvine, California. And we provide monthly bookkeeping services using QuickBooks to businesses in the United States. So as long as the company are in the United States and they follow US GAAP accounting principle, the business can be our clients. And our current clients are mostly in California, some are in Texas, Washington, Nevada, and some are in Japan.
Fantastic.
And
Do you already know Brian Swords? I see he joined the call. You must know Brian, right? He was with the Japanese consulate for 100 years.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've met you. How are you? Morning.
Hello. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think it's first time.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Nice to meet you, Brian.
Pleasure. Morning.
There's also another fellow, he had to drop out, but Dustin Luther, I think, is a really good connection for you, because he's more on the marketing side, but he works with a lot of companies that that you could help with the accounting. So I already made a note to make sure that you guys get connected.
Great.
Thank you for joining today. If you let's meet Brian Swords. He's being honored on April 2nd with a very rare award from the Japanese government for his long service to the country. There's two people in Southern California being honored right now. One is the fellow who started Nobu, the restaurant. So is it Masuhiro Nobuyaki? I don't know what his last name is. Nobu something.
Yeah. I'm not sure. We just all know him as Nobu.
So do you call him Nobu?
Chef Nobu.
Chef Nobu. Okay. So two people being honored in the United States, one being Chef Nobu and the other one being Chef Brian. So Brian, thank you for your leadership and just so many years of friendship. You know, I started coming to LA over 10 years ago before Global Chamber, and somehow I met Brian, and he was very inspirational for me because he played a key role in building the export plan for Los Angeles. And he showed me at the time a deck that was like 200 pages, and there were 20 of the pages were different organizations in Los Angeles that were involved in this export plan. And one of the reasons Brian has been so successful is he's so and I mean this in only the positive way, he's so behind the scenes that he is basically changing everybody's pulling people together, getting people to work together because he doesn't have an ego. He lets the others be out front. And Brian is someone, he doesn't even have a LinkedIn profile. He's Mr. Quiet, but he's dedicated. He wants progress to happen. And so when that export plan got put together to get all these groups to coordinate their effort and pull their information together, it took a magician to be able to do that. And Brian was that magician. And above and beyond that, of course, with the consulate, he's played a very key role in getting Japanese companies established and set up in Southern California and successful. And then when there was a drive to get them more connected to Arizona, then Global Chamber had formed, and Brian was instrumental in starting the Global Semiconductor Summit. And at that time, that was 4 or 5 years ago, there were about 40, maybe less than 40 Japanese companies in Arizona, and now there's close to 100. And so Brian is like quietly changing the world. So thank you and congratulations on what you're about to get on April 2nd. What perspectives do you have about the world right now?
Right now, really fascinating. And I think that Ayako could probably agree with me in her business. I think we're expecting, significant inward investment, foreign direct investment from Japan in particular over the next years. I think we're really seeing this in Orange County. A lot of it, the movement has been from the South Bay area, Torrance, Los Angeles, into the Orange County area. Just fantastic, actually. And all of these firms are very low profile in many cases. They just want to come here and do business. And you'd probably be surprised at some of the, American named firms, American branded firms that are actually owned by a Japanese company in the background. So they're doing very well. It's fascinating, and it's a good time to be involved with them. And on the trade front, I think everybody's just waiting to see what happens. Japan has significant leverage because they're the largest foreign investor in the US, largest employer of Americans among all foreign countries, and maybe neck and neck with the UK right now. But they have a significant amount of goodwill. So hopefully they'll be able to parlay that goodwill into good, positive trade relations. Tariff levels vis-a-vis the US, vis-a-vis Japan. Tariff levels on the Japan side vis-a-vis US products are very low, sometimes zero right now. So we'll see what happens. I think Japan is positioned fairly well. And my main area of focus is Japan. I can't really speak about other parts of the world very well.
Well, let's take a pause. We're about halfway through the program. And Dr. Jackson, do you have any comments? And does anybody have any questions for the speakers that have gone so far? Feel free to either raise your hand or just unmute yourself and go ahead and speak. Sarita, did you have any thoughts or comments so far?
No, just echoing, what pretty much all of us are kind of saying when it comes to the tariffs, wait and see. And then, it's interesting to hear the different perspectives from various geographical regions or with regard to different industries. So that's pretty much it. And then I do see that we have Professor Ansis has a question. So I'll just turn it over. And then we do have some individuals who aren't members. I'm so excited to see some new faces here, but we'll give them the platform, but we'll open it up to questions.
Thank you.
Roberto, hey, how are
Yes.
you? What's
Fine.
going on?
Actually, well, I tend to have a quite different position regarding tariffs. I'll explain to you why. First of all, the fact that some tariffs are being imposed, which are substantial, is forcing foreign companies to think seriously about investing in the US. And what they just heard the last speaker just said, I have right now a big influx of EU companies who decided to forego in the long term their exporting activities in the US, and they're starting investing to open up operations in the US. So that's what tariffs are doing. If you can come in because your market disappears, you bring the business here, and therefore you have very attractive incentives. 15% corporate tax is nothing. So that's number one. Number two is when you talk about manufacturing, and I'm just talking about manufacturing, typically when you look at the cost of goods sold, the product, the materials in any product is about 20% of the total amount. 30% is typically the work, overhead, et cetera, et cetera. So if 20% is the cost of it, and you have a 25%, and 20% of your materials come from overseas, well, 20% of 20% is 4%, and 25% of 4% is 1%. So technically, in manufacturing, the influence of tariffs because of products they're using for materials is going to be minimal and typically shared 50% from the vendor and 50% absorbed by the company. So with absolutely no market influence whatsoever. So that's what's happening in manufacturing. So it's pretty good news.
Okay, good perspective. Shalom Bako is also in the call, and he's exporting from Africa into the United States. Shalom, are you able to talk and mention about your work and any perspectives you have on the market right now? You've been cutting in and out, so I'm not sure if you're able to talk right now. When I talked to Brian yesterday on the phone, he was on a train, and it was actually heartening that people use the train. Thank you, Brian, for letting me know that. That's pretty cool.
Well, hi, everyone.
Oh,
yes, hello from Nigeria, West Africa.
We get to see you. Fantastic. That's amazing.
Well, it's evening here, so good morning to everybody. But I mean, again, a lot has been echoed. On the Africa side, which has been kind of my area of expertise with trade with the U.S., I think September will kind of be the time of judgment for us to kind of see what the relationships will look like. In the meantime, it's really just about preparation and really understanding that, the Trump administration is more interested in, let's call it, business, not necessarily charity. And so I am of the perspective, on a positive note, that a lot of the aid that, the African continent has been depending on now is being kind of switched to the mentality of looking at how business can be done with the continent. And I think that there's a lot that can be done between Africa and the U.S. And so I'm certainly looking forward to what the future holds. For us, with our operations from the continent and in the U.S., I think a lot of what we're looking at connecting with on the U.S. side is more companies that have a need for, cold storage, warehousing, and distribution services on that side. And we're still bringing from the African continent into the U.S. for manufacturers, so ingredients, et cetera. So I'm excited to see what happens between now and September. In the meantime, we're just going with the flow. So thank you.
What happens in September? Why is that a milestone for you?
AGOA. So, we're going to see if AGOA gets the African Growth and Opportunity Act, if that gets, renewed. And right now, what that does is it allows for tariff-free imports into the U.S. So I think there will be some form of, tariffs, but we certainly don't know what that looks like and in what industries, So September will be kind of the time of judgment for a lot of African countries.
Interesting. So it potentially could impact your business clearly as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But like I said, our business has kind of two takes. We have the import side, but we also have our distribution side, which is based in the U.S. I think in that sense, we're sort of ahead of the curve in the sense that we're already invested in the U.S. and not just importing stuff. So we're going to be looking at more things we can do within the U.S., such as, more value addition for the things that we import. So I think in that sense, we've kind of been a little bit ahead of the curve, and we're just going to keep going.
Fantastic. The Salih Alimam is in the call, and she's actually a Global Chamber employee. She may not be known to many of you. I don't know whether she can talk or not, but she is originally from Syria. She's got a degree in international trade from ASU and now a master's at Thunderbird. And so we're really happy to have her on. And I'm personally very happy because I kind of put a lot of the chapter growth activity to the side while we work through a lot of things. It was kind of happening, but not very organized. And so she and one other person, and with her as the leader, have been getting me in front of folks. And we have a big group of people joining Global Chamber new chapters around the world this month for the first time in about a year. So it's really exciting. Solly, are you available just to say hi and comment maybe on some of the things that you're doing, or are you locked up in something? And you may be locked up in something. That's cool. So I'll open it up to everybody. I see some people and some names that I recognize. Chris Hempel, for instance, I'm not sure you've been part of one of these calls, but feel free to jump in and say hi. Thank you for your team's membership at Global Chamber. Does anybody else? Valerie is here too. Valerie Hernandez, good to see you. Are you here in Southern California right now, or are you in Texas, or whereabouts are you? Feel free to jump in and say hi.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. Currently in Southern California. I'll have a piece in the discussion. So I do import export as a wholesale trader. So I do work with manufacturers primarily in Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines. And a lot of what I've noticed in our contracts with several clients is in the coconut oil industry, which is just some raw material, is that now a lot of the manufacturers are establishing exclusivity contracts, and this is just to protect them and to ensure that pricing stays consistent with their relationships. And that's just a little bit of my experience. And in terms of like coconut products and specifically coconut oil, it's just the pricing has been so volatile now with the shifts in policies and tariffs. Things are just getting a little bit more expensive. So I'm just in conversation with a customer or client in Germany trying to help formulate a better price and process, because now lead times have tend to be more than a month. So it's hurting the industry for sure. But I'm happy to share my experience along the way. But thank you, Doug, for that introduction.
My pleasure. I think Duncan is the fellow that I'm thinking of at the Exim Bank that is here in Southern California. Is that you? And are you able to speak? Are you? I don't know whether the government allows you to speak publicly. You're with the Exim Bank of the U.S., right?
Correct, absolutely, and just kind of echo what everybody else is saying. It's a great time of uncertainty, and businesses thrive on uncertainty, and they difficult for them to grow in uncertainty. So, Exim, as far as tariffs and stuff are concerned, that's kind of one of the things that we're supposed to do, as far as try to even out and mitigate the overseas risk. If an overseas buyer doesn't pay because they all of a sudden can't afford to, because their payables went up 25%, 50%, whatever. So we're seeing a great deal of interest and kind of increase in business in these uncertain times. So we're just kind of the government option. There's a lot of other, private sector counterparts to us as well. And, just like everybody else, we're kind of trying to navigate through this turbulent waters. Thank you.
So actually, one of the hugely positive things I've seen from afar, and it may be a misperception, is that Exim Bank is okay and that it's supported. And the conservative arm has been against Exim Bank and wanted to end Exim Bank. And I was personally involved with stopping that craziness, or what I perceived as craziness. And yet, what seems to be happening is maybe an expansion to some degree of Exims. Is that a misperception of what's happening?
Well, time will tell. Let's see what happens. We're kind of small, so the news is kind of filled with what's happening. Then some of the larger, more cabinet level entities, our chair hasn't been gone through the nominating process quite yet. So we will see. But to your point, Exim is a kind of a funny governmental animal. We're actually kind of a profit center for the U.S. government. We return money to the Treasury. We live or die by the insurance premium that we collect. We don't want to do a bad transaction. So we looks like we're in a pretty good place, and going forward, because as everybody knows, the current administration is all about America first, leveling the playing field, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, kind of Exim Bank's mission falls squarely within that ecosphere as far as what this administration wants. So, conceivably, we may actually grow in employees in our footprint. And, geez, we've got, what is it, 140 billion statutory limit on the amount of business that we can do. And last I looked, we were about half of that. So we've got, some 70 some odd $billion at existing levels that we could grow our business. So it is uncertain at the time as it is. From where I'm sitting, it looks to be an exciting time. Just the same, it's raising people's awareness on the importance of trade, foreign risk, and it's kind of a silver lining for Exim.
Interesting. Bill Edwards, what's your cut of that? Are you feel comfortable in making a comment about that?
I'm not sure what it is you want me to comment on, Doug.
About Exim Bank, one of the thoughts I had when this with new is that, well, they're all just going to get rid of Exim Bank because that's the way conservatives think. But it seems to be the opposite. I haven't chatted with anybody about this, so I'm glad Duncan came on. But the visual image is that they seem to be expanding and they're not in danger, like with USAID or some other initiatives.
Yeah, and in discussions I've had with DC under the District Export Council, Exim has actually been touted as something very positive going forward. Cool. More so perhaps than it had been in the past. And one of the reasons is that there aren't a lot of options that are safe, and Exim is. Plus, they're getting innovative as to the type of projects and the level of funding that they'll do. So I would not suggest we put an ad in the Wall Street Journal for them right now. But I think that they probably will come out of this just fine. In fact, maybe enhanced. And I see the professors going yes. So I'd like your feedback also, Professor.
What do you think, Prof?
Yeah, if you look at short term and long term, I think the Exim Bank, as of course imports are let's say obstacled by tariffs because we pay more for them. Export instead, they're facilitated because they control in terms of the total amount of entry into the country can be stabilized. But in my experience, Exim Bank has provided a tremendous positive support for every single client I had in going to countries where otherwise collection would have been quite challenging. So I see the more the uncertainty, the higher the risk, and the more Exim Bank would succeed. That would be my take.
Pretty cool. That's great news. Joe Rogers is in the call, and Joe, I've met Joe, and he had a much better Valentine's Day, I think, than I did, although I didn't hear what the results of yours were. Mine was I went to a recommended restaurant in a nice neighborhood of near UCLA, and I had our car broken into, which was my fault because I left it unlocked. Okay, I'm from New York, I should know better, but I left it unlocked. It was right there, and my wife pointed, said, "There's someone in the car." And sure enough, so he had some stuff. He ended up stealing wire for my plug-in for phone and a few other things, small things. And then later I found out he stole my really nice coat. It was in the back seat, a few $100 coat. So that was kind of bad. So I'm guessing at He-Day on Sawtell, you had a much better Valentine's Day. Are you available to talk?
Yeah, I am. Thank you, Doug.
What's
Yeah,
going on in your world?
so my Valentine's Day was at Hide Sushi on Sawtelle with my wife and my daughter, and we sat at the bar. It was awesome.
Amazing.
We still have to try your noodle place, but yeah. Hello, everyone. This is the first time I've joined this meeting. I met Doug at CES in Vegas in January, through another guy that I just met, through another guy that I had met at AWS in December. It's kind of crazy. But the notion of global chamber just like blew me away. And I went to this Silicon Summit in Phoenix, which was very cool. And my business uh, is software, specifically AI. I have a company called workdone.ai, and we have a service called corporate memory, which has a great use case for manufacturing. But basically, we observe knowledge workers in the back office processing complex transactions, and we inspect the work coming in. We observe how the work is processed, and then we capture the outcomes and figure out the best way, discern the best way to process specific types of work to achieve the ideal outcomes. And we store those best practices or work heuristics, we call them, in a customer's corporate memory, with the objective of solving the problem of knowledge walking out the door when people retire or change jobs, and that those best practices are retained and shared amongst workers so they can all like know the best way to do something even on day one of their employ. And because we now kind of know how to process stuff, we automate, easily 2/3 to 3/4 of the work, and with a human in the middle, so that there's no, the AI doesn't make bad decisions or isn't allowed to. So it's kind of, I consulted for a company called FileNet that IBM bought in the enterprise content management and business process management space in the 90s and the 2000s, and did a lot of work in like B of A and Standard Chartered Bank on trade finance applications, both in Hong Kong. Did some work with Kuwait Oil Company, and some time in Saudi, a lot of time in Southeast Asia, all over the U.S., County of LA, City of New York. I actually haven't told this story in a while. I told it last night. I had to run when the first tower came down at 9/11. And then my team, we were working in Lower Manhattan. We all volunteered at the medical examiner's office to basically build a document management system to facilitate what was found at ground zero, and then feed it through to the Family Bereavement Center, where wives would bring in toothbrushes and they could do a DNA match. And if it matched, then that was the beginning of the death certificate process, which was completely paper-based at the time, no digital transformation. And that was very critical because then these surviving family members could get life insurance payments. And so it was a crazy, crazy time. And I've kind of been everywhere and done everything on my Harvard undergrad computer science, went independent straight out of school. So I've only been self-employed. And I actually had a realization as to how I could automate myself as a consultant, and filed for a patent on something we call expertise capture. That patent came through 5 years later. So yeah, thanks. So work done is like right now we're targeting order to cash for manufacturers from the time the sales order hits the door through inventory credit, fulfillment or fabrication or whatever, and then shipping, invoicing through accounts receivable. We monitor the desktops across functions. We see the whole order, and then we can basically, without setting foot on site, I've subcontracted to Deloitte, I've subcontracted to Accenture. I know how they work, and this sort of, we're basically providing.
We got to keep moving on.
Sorry, you got me going. Sorry, Doug.
There's two people that I want to make sure that you're connected to, because you've given me some other additional ideas and probably others in the room as well.
Cool. Yeah. Well, reach out.
Appreciate it. I just want to make sure that we get done at 55. I'm trying to finish these up a little bit before the top of the hour, and would love to, since we're kind of that close, Sarita, would you like to make any closing comments before we close the room?
Oh, let's see. There are two people. Will they be able to introduce themselves? And then, yeah, I do have some closing comments.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Ricardo, and then there is a Johannes. I don't know if Johannes, I saw on the call, but maybe
Johannes Gates. Yeah, he's definitely a member in LA,
got off the call.
logistics fellow.
Okay, pero Ricardo, I'm hablando en español. Talking in Spanish. Ricardo, if you can introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you. Can you guys hear me well?
We can, yes, absolutely.
Nice.
Welcome.
I think I met you, Doug, before. I'm not sure, but maybe I'm. My name is Ricardo Casain. I'm a freight forwarder. I am located here in San Diego, California, and I met Sarita a couple weeks ago or a month ago. My pleasure, and I have been asking her to invite me to conferences, webinars, because I'm looking forward to open my services to Africa principally. I ship to Europe, I ship to Caribbean, work now in South America as well too. In Central America, I ship as well too, also importing from Asia to United States. In the past, pre-COVID, I shipped vehicles, some goods to Africa, principally Nigeria and Ghana. So I'm start looking back in that portion of my business that I like to do. And I can talk with Sarita how I can approach myself and offer my services. And very happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Who did you say you had heard about Global Chamber from?
Sarita.
Oh, Sarita. Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm half
her.
Brazilian, half Argentinian, so my accent sometimes mix, and I can speak Sarita as a Spanish or Portuguese speaker. That can happen sometimes. So thank you, Doug.
No, beautiful. No, that works out really well. Sarita, how did you guys know each other, and what are your thoughts there, and then any concluding comments?
I met Sarita via Simona Rosek. She's my mentor. I met her a couple of years ago, and she has been assisting me, very counseling me very nicely. It's amazing, and so Sarita and Simona, they network each other, I think so, and Jonathan, her assistant, introduced her to me, and we start like talking and see what I can do to offer my services to Africa, the freight. I really want to assist the small companies, East African small companies, Nigeria, Ghana, Angola, that because the Portuguese language that they speak sometimes is very helpful. I'm also Brazilian, so I know that Angola and Brazil has a lot trade.
We'll be happy to help, and we also have a good relationship with Indonesia, which also has the same kind of needs. So thank you very much for sharing. Thank you for coming, and we'll follow up. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
We're right at 10:55, and just he mentioned Simona. Yeah, so Simona and I work together in international trade with Women in International Trade, Orange County, and then we've been assisting together Ricardo with his services. And so just to wrap up everything, my final thoughts. One of the things I just want to throw out that we should not forget about, and I thought about this when Brian mentioned about the low tariff rates with Japan, is that a lot of the reciprocal tariffs that we're going to see come down the pipeline on April 2nd, it really is not just about tariffs. When it comes to international trade, you also have to understand the importance of non-tariff barriers that have an impact on what exporters are doing. And I saw Anita, I won't have time to go into too much detail. I saw your question about what does it mean for exporters. It means that the price of your good is going to be more expensive in that market. But again, don't forget that it's not just about the tariff rates that's placed on those goods, but the non-tariff barriers, which are different types of regulations and restrictions that are not tariffs that make it difficult to access that market. And that's one of the things that I talk about, especially for companies, because manufacturers are hit by tariffs, but both your manufacturers and service providers, and many of us are service providers, if you're trying to export a service. And then just lastly, Joe, I would like to speak with you because something you mentioned, and I didn't get a chance to talk about with contracting. We know that USAID, that's how I've been able to provide services around the world through the government contracts, and particularly most of them were with U.S. Agency for International Development, but you also have multilateral development banks. And that's something I think would be a value of understanding the opportunities. Yes, all of this talk about tariffs, but there still are opportunities, other resources or private companies, like you mentioned, some of the where you were a subcontractor or collaborated with other companies to work on these projects. So I just wanted to round it to end it on that note of don't forget about non-tariff barriers to trade, and then look at some of these other opportunities that exist for not just your manufacturers, but also for service providers, and navigate looking at the service economy, and particularly knowledge economy, digital economy, some of these other areas as well. Thank you.
We have the League of Opportunities Part 1 starting in 5 hours. And then if you want to get a glimpse of Export League, which is a signature event and initiative by Global Chamber, in 25 hours, Phoenix Export League will be finishing up right before the signups are completed. So if you'd like to get a glimpse of that, join that meetup in 25 hours. Go to the Global Chamber website and you can see the events there. For Global Chamber Los Angeles, this conversation happens once a month. It's on the third Thursday at 10 a.m. The next one is April 17th, and the next advisory board meeting for the region is June 26th. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Can I say
Bye-bye.
something really quick? Oh, never mind.
Oh, who is that?
Oh, it was me. I'm sorry. I was
Oh,
just gonna
Sally.
say, but it's okay. I was just gonna introduce myself, and I wasn't fast enough to click the unmute button. I mean, who's still here? I just want to say it's great to hear and listen to all the valuable insight. You know, global trade, it's a challenging and fast and inspiring to see how businesses are adopting. I'm really looking forward to learn more and connecting with many of you. And again, thank you, Doug, for the introduction. I appreciate it, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Sally. Sally is working with me on the chapter development at Global Chamber. So thank you, Sally, for all your good work.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.